Have you ever wondered why so many older adults find themselves wide awake at 3 or 4 in the morning? Does it feel like your body is trying to tell you something, but you're just not sure what? And could this early rising actually reveal more than just a change in your sleep routine? Waking up before sunrise might seem like just another odd part of getting older, but it's far from random, and definitely not meaningless. In fact, this pattern is often one of the clearest signs of how your brain, hormones, emotions, and overall health are shifting as you age. Whether it happens occasionally or almost every single night, waking up early could be your body's way of sending you signals you shouldn't ignore. In this video, we're uncovering 6 surprising reasons why older adults wake up before 4 a.m. and what each one really says about your health. These aren't myths or old wives' tales. They're grounded in research and based on years of careful observation by sleep doctors and specialists working with thousands of seniors. Once you understand the true causes behind your sleep changes, you may not only rest more peacefully, you might start to see your body's rhythms and needs in a whole new light. So if you've ever stared at the ceiling at 3:47 a.m., asking yourself, why does this keep happening? Stay with us. What you're about to discover could change how you see your sleep, your health, and even your state of mind. Let's begin with the first reason: changes in circadian rhythm. One of the most common and completely natural reasons older adults wake up before 4 a.m. is due to a shift in the body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm. This is your biological system that determines when you feel sleepy and when you feel alert. As we grow older, this clock doesn't operate the way it used to. It gradually shifts forward. This process, known as phase advance, causes your body to release melatonin, the hormone that helps you fall asleep, earlier in the evening. The result? You feel tired sooner at night and find yourself waking up much earlier in the morning, sometimes even before the first light of day. While it may feel frustrating, it's actually a normal part of aging, and understanding it is the first step toward regaining control over your rest. You might find yourself drifting off to sleep around 8 or 9 p.m. instead of your usual 10 or 11. And since most adults still need somewhere between 6 to 8 hours of sleep, waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning isn't necessarily a sign of poor rest. It's just earlier than what many consider normal. But here's where things start to get a little more complicated. Going to bed early and waking up early isn't automatically a problem, unless it feels like one. If you wake up at 3 a.m. feeling clear-headed and energized, your body could simply be telling you it's completed a full, healthy sleep cycle. However, if you're rising too early and spending the rest of the day tired, sluggish, or mentally foggy, then this shift might start interfering with your overall well-being. That's when this natural change becomes more than just a minor inconvenience. It becomes a real challenge. This shift in your sleep rhythm isn't only about melatonin or hormones. As we grow older, a part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which helps regulate the sleep-wake cycle, begins to lose sensitivity. It becomes less responsive to environmental signals like light, making it harder for the body to stay in sync with the world around it. As a result, the usual cues that tell your body when it's time to rest or rise become weaker, more scattered, and sometimes completely out of alignment. You may start feeling drowsy before dinner, only to wake up several hours before dawn, unsure of why your internal clock feels so out of step. But there's also an emotional and psychological side to this. Many older adults have lived their lives with strong routines, work schedules, social habits, family commitments. When those routines shift or disappear due to retirement, loss of a loved one, health issues, or increased isolation, the body sometimes responds by rearranging its internal rhythms in surprising ways. Take Harold, for example. At 77, he had always considered himself a night owl. But after retiring and losing his wife, his evenings changed. He now finds himself nodding off by 8 p.m. and waking naturally around 4 a.m. At first, he feared something was wrong. But after speaking with his doctor and making small intentional changes to his evening habits, Harold realized that his sleep pattern had simply evolved. Those quiet morning hours, once unfamiliar, have become a space for reflection, journaling, or calm walks before the world comes alive. What once felt strange has now become a peaceful and meaningful part of his day. So if you find yourself waking up around 3:30 a.m., pause for a moment and ask yourself, did I go to bed earlier than usual? Did I actually get 6 or 7 hours of sleep? If the answer is yes, then your body may simply be following a new pattern, one that's more in tune with your current needs. It doesn't mean something is broken. In fact, it could mean the opposite. Your system might just be doing exactly what it's supposed to, adjusting to a rhythm that works for where you are in life. Accepting and understanding that shift is a powerful first step. Once you see it not as a problem, but as a natural change, you can begin to make peace with your new rhythm. And with that peace comes an opportunity to actually use this quiet, early time to your advantage. Another common reason older adults find themselves waking up during the night or before 4 a.m. lies deep within the brain. A gradual decline in melatonin production. This change happens slowly, almost silently, but it has a major impact on how we sleep. Melatonin, often called the sleep hormone, plays a central role in regulating our body's internal clock. It's the chemical signal that tells your body, it's time to rest. In younger years, melatonin levels rise steadily in the evening, making you feel sleepy, then remain elevated throughout the night, helping maintain a long and restorative rest. But as we get older, especially after age 60, and even more so after 70, those melatonin surges begin to diminish. Your body still produces melatonin, but in smaller amounts and for a shorter duration. That means you might still fall asleep easily at the start of the night. The problem is staying asleep, and so, as the hormone dips too early, your sleep gets interrupted. You wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, your mind is active, your body can't settle, and that deep, uninterrupted sleep you used to enjoy feels like a distant memory. But again, it's not a sign that your body is failing. It's a reflection of a very normal part of aging. The key lies in recognizing it, not fearing it. What's really happening is that the biological support system that once kept your sleep cycle stable is slowly becoming less efficient. And while this transformation is completely natural, it can feel frustrating, confusing, or even a bit alarming, especially if you don't know what's behind it. What makes this shift even more challenging is that it's subtle. Unlike physical pain or fatigue, you don't actually feel your melatonin levels dropping. Instead, you just start to notice that your nights feel more interrupted, and you're waking up much earlier than you ever used to. The change creeps in quietly. And because melatonin does more than help with sleep, affecting mood, metabolism, and even your immune response, those early risings might bring along other symptoms too, like increased irritability, daytime sluggishness, or feeling more vulnerable to illness. But here's the good news. Even if your body isn't producing as much melatonin as it once did, there are still simple, gentle ways to support that system and encourage more restful sleep. Take Susan, for example. At 74, she began waking up almost every single night around 3:30 a.m., her eyes wide open in the dark, lying quietly and waiting for the sun to rise. She wasn't anxious. She wasn't in pain. She just couldn't sleep anymore. After a thoughtful conversation with her doctor, she made a few small changes to her nighttime routine. She began dimming the lights after dinner. She turned off the television an hour before bed, and she cut out caffeine after lunchtime. Within just a few weeks, she noticed real results. Not only did she fall asleep more easily, but she also started sleeping for longer stretches. And even on the rare nights she still woke up early, she felt more rested and alert throughout the day. Her energy returned, and her mood improved. This is the thing about melatonin. It's incredibly sensitive to your surroundings. Bright lights in the evening, especially the kind emitted by phones, tablets, and TVs, can significantly reduce melatonin production. Likewise, stimulating activities before bedtime, whether it's intense news, background noise, or even an emotionally charged conversation, can interfere with how your body prepares for rest. Your brain naturally begins to slow down in the evening, preparing for rest, but it can only do so if you give it the right signals. When you protect your evenings by lowering the lights, turning off screens, and embracing a quieter routine, your body begins to understand that it's time to wind down. If you've been waking up earlier than you'd like, wondering why your sleep feels more delicate or inconsistent than it once did, take a closer look at what your melatonin levels might be doing, or failing to do. It's not about blaming age, it's about understanding your body's natural rhythm, working with it instead of against it, and creating the conditions that allow you to sleep deeply again. When you support your biology instead of resisting it, even small adjustments can lead to more restful nights and more energized days. Another reason many older adults find themselves awake before 4 a.m. is something often overlooked, yet incredibly powerful: increased sensitivity to environmental disturbances, especially light and noise. As we grow older, our sleep naturally becomes lighter, more fragile, and easier to disrupt. The kind of background noise or subtle light that never used to bother you, like a creaky floorboard or the glow of a street lamp, can now snap you out of sleep without warning. And what's worse, falling back asleep afterward isn't always easy. In your younger years, your brain would cycle through long stretches of deep, restorative sleep, also known as slow-wave sleep. During those stages, your body was harder to wake, and small interruptions barely registered. But by the time you reach your 60s and 70s, those deep stages start to shorten. You spend more of the night in lighter phases of sleep, which are easier to interrupt and less deeply restorative. This shift serves a biological purpose. Lighter sleep keeps you more alert to potential threats in your environment, something that was once crucial for survival. But today, this alertness can backfire, especially when the threats are just harmless modern noises, like a refrigerator hum, a barking dog, or a neighbor's early morning car ignition. And then there's light. Even a brief flicker from a digital clock, the glare of headlights, or the soft glow of a hallway bulb can be enough to send a signal to your brain that it's time to wake up. This hypersensitivity isn't imagined. It's a very real, age-related change in how the brain processes sensory input during sleep. During these lighter stages of sleep, even the faintest sounds, a creak in the floor, a distant car door closing, or the hum of a refrigerator, can pull you out of slumber. And once you're awake, it's not always easy to drift back to sleep. It's not that you're not tired, it's that your body no longer has the deep sleep momentum that used to carry you through the night uninterrupted. There's also a deeper, more subtle layer to this growing sensitivity. For many older adults, a long-established internal sense of alertness becomes more active in the early morning hours. This often comes from years, sometimes decades, of routines built around caregiving, early job shifts, or an ingrained sense of responsibility. Even when those responsibilities have faded, the brain may still behave as if they're present, keeping the body in a lighter, more reactive state of rest. Take Glenn, for example. He's a retired firefighter in his early 80s. For years, his shifts often began before sunrise, sometimes as early as 4 a.m. Even after he stopped working, Glenn found himself waking up almost every day before dawn. It didn't take much, a distant truck rumbling by, the faint glow of his alarm clock, to wake him up. At first, he thought it was just something he had to live with. But over time, he realized his brain was still responding to the deeply ingrained patterns of his former life. So he decided to try a few simple changes. He installed blackout curtains to block out the first light of morning. He added a white noise machine to soften the impact of sudden sounds. And he made sure all electronic lights, those tiny but distracting glows from chargers, clocks, or power indicators, were turned off or covered up. Within just a few weeks, Glenn was sleeping more soundly and waking up later. He finally felt rested again. The encouraging news is this: increased sensitivity doesn't have to dictate your mornings forever. Small environmental changes can make a powerful difference. Blackout shades or a comfortable sleep mask can block out early morning light. A white noise machine, or even the soft hum of a fan, can muffle background noises that would otherwise jolt you awake. Removing blinking lights or turning off unnecessary electronics can help your brain remain in a calmer, more restful state. So if you've been waking up too early and wondering why every slight noise or faint glow seems to disturb your rest, know this: it's not in your imagination. Your aging brain is adjusting to a new level of sensitivity, but while this change is completely natural, it's also something you can manage. With a few thoughtful adjustments, you might find yourself sleeping longer, staying asleep more easily, and finally waking up at a time that feels right for you. Another important reason why so many older adults keep waking up before 4 a.m. is the presence of underlying health conditions, physical issues that quietly interfere with the body's ability to stay in restful sleep. These aren't always dramatic or immediately noticeable. In fact, many of them are subtle, persistent, and often dismissed as just normal signs of aging. But even small disruptions caused by health problems can have a surprisingly big effect on when and how well you sleep. One of the most common and often overlooked culprits is frequent urination during the night. As we age, the bladder gradually becomes less elastic, and hormonal changes reduce its ability to hold urine for long periods. That means many seniors find themselves waking once, twice, or even 3 times a night to use the bathroom. Each trip may feel routine or harmless, but it breaks up your sleep cycle. And once the rhythm is broken, falling back into deep sleep becomes much harder. By the time your body finally settles again and you're ready to sleep, you glance at the clock and it's already 3:45 a.m. Your mind starts turning. The day feels like it's already begun, and that restful window you were aiming for has slipped away. But it's not just the bladder. Chronic pain also plays a major role. Conditions like arthritis, back problems, joint stiffness, or lingering muscle aches can all make it harder to fall asleep, or keep you from staying asleep once you've dozed off. And pain doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it's a dull throb in your hip or a subtle pressure in your shoulder. It may not seem strong enough to fully wake you, but it quietly shifts your body from deep, healing sleep into lighter stages, leaving you more vulnerable to waking up from other small disruptions like light, sound, or racing thoughts. Breathing issues are another major factor that often go undiagnosed. Problems such as sleep apnea, heavy snoring, asthma, or even simple nasal congestion can disturb airflow throughout the night. This leads to lowered oxygen levels and causes your brain to trigger what are called micro-awakenings, tiny sleep interruptions that most people aren't even aware of. You may not remember them, but you definitely feel their effects. You might wake up before sunrise, feeling tired and unfocused, and wonder why you can't sleep through the night anymore. What makes this even trickier is that breathing disruptions don't always come with dramatic gasping or choking sounds. They're easy to miss, especially if you sleep alone. Unless someone else notices or you undergo a sleep study, these issues can go undetected for years. Even though they're silently robbing you of quality rest, sometimes it takes a closer look to uncover what's really going on. Take Pauline, for example. She's 72 and spent months waking up like clockwork around 3:30 every morning. At first, she simply assumed it was just part of aging, something inevitable. But during a routine doctor's visit, she mentioned her sleep troubles, and her physician looked a little deeper. What they discovered was surprising. Her blood pressure medication was increasing nighttime urination, quietly disturbing her rest. Together, they adjusted the timing of her medication. Almost immediately, her sleep began to improve. She still wakes up a bit earlier than she did in her younger years, but now it doesn't leave her drained or frustrated. "I thought it was just what happens when you get older," she said. "Turns out it was something I could fix." Pauline's experience is a reminder that even small factors can have a big impact. Things like low iron levels, thyroid imbalances, or the side effects of medications can shift how your body moves through the night. If you're consistently waking before 4 a.m. and you've ruled out changes in your evening habits, light or noise, it may be time to dig deeper. A full medical review could uncover issues you didn't realize were affecting your sleep. Sometimes, it's not about a complete overhaul, just a few thoughtful adjustments. And those changes might add up to several extra hours of restorative rest. That's why it's so important not to simply accept early wake-ups as an unavoidable part of getting older. Yes, aging plays a role, but in some cases, your body may actually be sending out a quiet signal, asking for attention. And when you choose to listen, when you ask the right questions and seek support, you're not only giving yourself the chance to sleep better, you're giving your health the attention and respect it truly deserves. Sleep isn't only about the body, it's also deeply connected to the mind. Emotional and mental health factors, especially the ones that quietly build up over time, can have a powerful effect on your sleep patterns. And for many older adults, the early morning hours, the still, silent moments before the rest of the world stirs, are when the mind speaks the loudest. As we age, we carry more with us. More memories, more worries, more what-ifs and should-haves. During the day, life keeps us busy and distracted. But at night, when things slow down and distractions fade, those inner thoughts often come to the surface, and that's when sleep becomes more fragile. This is especially true for seniors who are processing grief, living alone, dealing with ongoing anxiety, or carrying unresolved emotional stress. You may fall asleep without any trouble at all, only to find yourself suddenly awake in the early hours, staring into the darkness, your mind racing through thoughts you didn't expect. This experience is far more common than most people realize. Research shows that older adults who frequently wake up early often have higher levels of anxiety or depressive symptoms, even if they don't describe themselves as anxious or depressed. It doesn't always show up as sadness. Sometimes it feels more like a quiet tension, a vague restlessness, a nagging concern about your health, your loved ones, your finances, or your future. And while those feelings may seem small, they can quietly pull your brain out of deep, restorative sleep. I remember talking with Leonard, a kind and soft-spoken man in his late 70s. He had recently moved into a smaller home after losing his wife. "I don't have nightmares or anything like that," he said. "I just wake up at 3 a.m. and start thinking about her, about the life we had, about what I'm even doing with the time I have left." He wasn't asking for sympathy. He was just sharing something real, something many people feel, but rarely put into words. Those early morning awakenings aren't always random. Sometimes they're your mind's way of asking for attention. They're invitations to notice what's stirring inside. And while that might sound heavy or even uncomfortable, it can also be an opportunity for healing. Because once you realize your thoughts are trying to tell you something, you can begin to respond to them with gentleness instead of frustration. There are ways to ease these emotional disruptions to sleep. Creating a calming bedtime routine can help, something as simple as journaling, saying a quiet prayer, practicing meditation, or jotting down what's on your mind before you lie down. These small actions can help clear mental clutter and settle the mind. Talking with someone, a close friend, a support group, or a professional counselor can also help release the weight of unspoken thoughts. Sometimes, just speaking the words aloud can bring relief. So the next time you find yourself wide awake before the sun has risen, try listening, not just to your body, but to your heart. What is it quietly trying to say? What has it been holding on to? And how might you begin to care for it with the same patience and kindness you offer others? Carefully paying attention to those early morning hours may be one of the most healing choices you can make, because they often reflect more than just broken sleep. They can be subtle signs of unmet needs, gently asking to be heard. And when we begin to truly listen, we can start giving our minds and bodies the care they've been asking for. Another reason older adults frequently wake up before 4 a.m. is surprisingly simple, yet often overlooked: a lack of stimulation during the day. It may sound counterintuitive at first, but when your body and mind aren't engaged enough while the sun is up, whether that's through movement, social interaction, exposure to sunlight, or a sense of purpose, it doesn't build up the internal momentum it needs to maintain deep sleep through the night. This lack of daytime stimulation doesn't always feel obvious. It can creep in gradually, becoming part of your routine before you even realize something's off. But over time, it quietly disrupts the sleep process, making it harder to stay asleep, even if you fall asleep without much effort. One of the key reasons this happens is due to a process known as sleep pressure, a natural buildup of certain chemicals in the brain, particularly adenosine, that accumulate the longer you stay awake and active. The more mentally and physically engaged you are throughout the day, the more sleep pressure builds up, helping you drift off faster at night and stay asleep longer. But when your days are quiet, sedentary, or repetitive, that pressure doesn't build the same way. You might go to bed early, fall asleep easily, and then wake up a few hours later, alert, restless, and wondering why your sleep feels so short. Think of it like inflating a balloon. If you only blow in a little air, it deflates quickly. But when it's filled completely, it holds its form for much longer. Your brain operates in a similar way. Full, engaged days help support full, uninterrupted nights. This is especially important for seniors who are retired, live alone, or experience reduced mobility. Without the structure of a job, the presence of children, or a calendar full of commitments, it's easy for the day to lose its shape. And while rest is valuable, too much stillness, especially during daylight hours, can actually lead to more restlessness later on, rather than restoring your energy. There's another key factor here: exposure to natural light. Many older adults don't spend enough time in direct sunlight, particularly in the morning hours, and that matters more than most people realize. Light is the brain's most powerful cue for setting your internal clock. When you step outside in the morning, whether it's for a walk, watering the garden, or simply sitting on the porch, you're sending a clear message to your brain. This is daytime. That daily exposure to natural light plays a critical role in regulating your sleep-wake cycle. When your brain receives enough sunlight, especially in the morning, it helps calibrate your internal clock, making it easier to fall into deep sleep later that night. But if most of your time is spent indoors, under dim lighting, or in front of screens, that rhythm can become disrupted. Your brain may lose its sense of when it's time to be awake and when it's time to rest, leading to lighter, more fragmented sleep. Let me tell you about Elaine, an 80-year-old woman who had recently moved into an assisted living apartment. She started noticing she was waking up at 3 a.m. every night, restless, irritable, and unable to fall back asleep. When asked about her daily routine, she quietly admitted that most of her time was spent sitting in front of the television, dozing in her recliner, and often skipping meals because she didn't feel hungry. Her doctor gently suggested something simple: try joining just one group activity each day and take a 10-minute walk outside each morning. Elaine agreed, and within a few short weeks, she began to notice a difference. Her sleep became deeper and more continuous. While she still occasionally woke up early, it was now closer to 5 a.m., and she felt noticeably better during the day, with more energy and fewer moments of irritability or fatigue. The key here is understanding that stimulation doesn't mean overexertion or complicated schedules. It can be gentle, intentional, and even enjoyable. A short walk around the block, reading a chapter of a book, calling a friend for a quick chat, organizing a drawer, or simply tapping your foot to music you enjoy. These small acts are enough to engage your mind and body, just enough to build healthy sleep pressure. That pressure is what encourages your system to rest more deeply once night comes. Equally important is creating a steady, daily rhythm. Waking up at the same time each morning, eating meals on a consistent schedule, getting some natural light during the day, and winding down mindfully in the evening. These simple cues help signal to your body when it's time to be active and when it's time to rest. Over time, these small signals accumulate and strengthen your sleep routine, leading to more predictable, restorative nights. So if you find yourself lying awake before 4 a.m. and your days feel a bit too still or slow, consider adding small, purposeful moments of movement, connection, or structure. This isn't about filling your calendar just to stay busy. It's about giving your brain and body enough light, activity, and rhythm to feel truly ready for rest. Because when your days feel full in the right ways, your nights often become much more peaceful. When your days are structured with purpose, even gently, your nights tend to follow with more ease and restfulness. If you've made it this far in the video and found value in what we've shared, I invite you to comment number 6 below. It lets me know you're still here, still listening, and that these insights are meaningful to you. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any future videos. Your support allows us to continue creating thoughtful, informative content made especially for you. Now, let's take a quiet moment to reflect on everything we've explored together. Of all the reasons we've discussed, whether it's changes in your internal clock, lower melatonin levels, increased sensitivity to light and sound, hidden health issues, emotional tension, or even just a lack of daily activity, did one of them resonate with you? Did something stand out, feel familiar, or spark a new understanding? Maybe, for the first time in a long while, you realize there might actually be a reason behind those 3 o'clock a.m. awakenings. And that realization? It matters, because you're not alone in this experience. Waking up early as we age isn't something to fear or fight. It's something to notice, to understand. Your body, your mind, and even your spirit are always evolving. They're adjusting to life's seasons, adapting to change, and sometimes quietly asking for attention and care in ways that don't use words. Sometimes it's a feeling. Sometimes it's a pattern, like the specific hour you rise, that carries a message. But here's the hopeful part. These early wake-ups aren't a sentence. They're an invitation. An invitation to take a closer look at your habits, your sleep space, your evening wind down, or even that nagging discomfort you've been ignoring. They might prompt you to speak to a doctor, adjust your routine, or add more meaningful activity into your day. They also remind you of something powerful. Your body is still communicating with you, and that means there's still time to listen, to respond, to grow, and to care for yourself more deeply. Maybe you're already doing better than you think. Maybe your early mornings aren't a problem to solve, but a rhythm to support. Or maybe, with just a few thoughtful changes, you can start waking up a little later, feeling more refreshed, and moving through each day with greater ease, clarity, and peace. Because in the end, this journey isn't just about getting better sleep. It's about building a better relationship with yourself. One night, one morning, one small step at a time. Because when you sleep well, everything begins to shift in a beautiful way. Your mind becomes clearer. Your heart feels just a little lighter. Your body moves more freely. And your days, no matter how early they begin, start to feel more grounded, more connected, and more alive. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. We'd truly love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one insight that stood out to you, or one change you're thinking about making in your own routine. Your stories matter, and hearing your thoughts gives us the motivation to keep showing up and creating videos that serve, support, and inspire. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content for you and this growing community. Wishing you all good health, deep rest, lasting happiness, and peaceful days ahead. Take care of yourself, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.